Bhagavad Gita, Manushyanam Sahasreshu Kaschid Yatati Siddhaye Yatatam Api Siddhanam Kaschid Mam Vetti Tatvataha. Out of thousands of people, thousands of beings who are born on earth, who are capable of understanding God, who are capable of realizing God, Manushyanam Sahasreshu, thousands of them, Kaschid, somebody, one amongst them, Yatati Siddhaye. He works hard, Yatati, to achieve it, to Siddhaye. To achieve it, he works hard. Yatatam api Siddhanam, of those who work hard, that is one on the thousands, who work hard to achieve that, Kaschid Mam Vetti Tatvataha. Some one person ultimately comes to know me, to realize me. That is the plight of the world. If in that yuga, when generally people were more spiritually inclined, so to say, generally they were more interested in the higher things in life. There were more rishis, there were more munis, the Gurukula system was still intact. In those days only, if Sri Krishna himself has to say this, there are thousands of people, some one fellow puts efforts on this path. And those who put efforts in that, some one person ultimately gets to know me. If that is the case in Krishna's times, historically say 5,000 years ago, in 5,000 years the amount of decline that has happened in the culture of India, the Vedic Dharma Marga Parata culture, which has become Adharma Marga Parata now. Everything and anything is okay. Nobody is what they are. And in this Kali Yuga, if after 5,000 years, there is no concept of Gurukula. Gurukula is a fancy word to attract attention. And in the name of Gurukula, international schools run without real effort to run it as a Gurukulam. The children are sent primarily to learn the worldly education, and the teachers and the system is at the mercy of the rich parents who can pay the fees. In this place, in this time, in these circumstances, thinking of a system which completely changes the way of teaching and learning is almost impossible. But for a system like ours, which is absolutely free of cost, and we have no personal agenda whatsoever, we have nothing in our minds to gain from it. Because we are desireless, therefore we have the power. That is what I said the other day. Abhayam, only Vairagya. Only Vairagi has a Abhaya, fearlessness. What can happen? Whatever happens, we will see. So that is the kind of confidence that those have who have this Abhaya. Otherwise, they will not be able to think also in these lines. Anyways, Narasimhamurthy has well explained the necessity for it. However, in due course of time, it will get implemented. I said you have both avidya. Avidya means the aparavidya and the real vidya, suvidya, paravidya. Both have to go hand in hand. So our children must learn computers, they must learn mathematics, science, the concepts of sociology, philosophy, everything as languages, literature. Also they should learn all the other life skills, be it agriculture, be it looking after animals, be it even looking after the environment, or doing all the day-to-day things. They should be able to cook a decent meal for a few people. They should be able to drive a car. They should be able to swim. They should be able to engage in sports and other activities. They should be able to do everything, literally everything. That is why other day I was explaining, our students' house should be, there should be Sarva Veda with Shura Nai, Dhiraha. When Sri Rama went to Sri Rama, Lakshmana, Bharata, Shatrughna went to Vasishta's ashram and they were finishing, their graduation is over. At that time, Vasishta, the Valmiki Ramayana describes how these students were in 4 words, 4 phrases. Well, Sarva Veda with, they are completely knowledgeable of all Vedas, not like our Chaturvedi in the story. They are Sarva Vedi. And truly they are Sarvavedi. They know everything, not just because somebody is saying so. Sarvaveda with Shuraha. Not Shuraha, for our Dhiraha, the discriminating ones. Shura means the courageous ones. I am saying Dhiraha, the discriminating ones. Then what do they do? Sarvaloka hite rataha. All the time they are engaged in the service of others. Then Sarve Jnanopasampannaha. From them emanate all the jnana. They are the storehouse, repositories of all types of wisdom, not just the prajnana, vijnana also. They are aware. Aparavidya and Paravidya, they are both adept in both the things. And Sarve Samagudita Gunaihi. All good qualities emanate from them, naturally. Goodness is their character. So these are the 4 lines on which this Gurukulam should continue. I think some of you were there when we were starting this Gurukulam online program, where some online videos are being put up and all the children from around the world can benefit and use these videos. At this point, these videos are generally of Aparavidya, which is to help children come out of this crisis right now of no education happening, no teaching happening. And those who are private, they are charging a lot for the lesson plans and classroom teaching. So this will become one trend. That is, but along with that, more importantly is the Paravidya. If this Paravidya is not available, then you have not learnt anything. Aparavidya also becomes zero. It's Paravidya which gives value to Aparavidya. Paravidya is the one, Aparavidya is the zero. Without one, zero has no value. Out of, if put one, it will become 10, 100, 1,000, 10,000, million, billion, trillions. Everything is after that one. Whereas if you remove that one, as many zeros you add, at the end of it, it is going to be zero only. So from that point of view of teaching children what really matters. And I am not looking at Narasimhamurthy says that they should go and see at the plant and tell what is this, is potato or carrot. I was saying they should be able to see, they should be aware of the Sarvam Brahman. That's also is Brahman. That kind of attitude they should go. Of course, they will identify it as Brahman in potato, but their attitude should be Brahman, not less than that. What is it? Everything is Brahma. Sarvam Kalvidam Brahma. That potato also is Brahman. Brahman is the one who is making the potato grow. Everything happens because of Brahman. That is what the Upanishads say. Kene Shitam, by whose will all things are happening here. Our mind, our prana, our vacha, our chakshu, shrotra, whose will, whose power is behind all this? And the answer is that the one who is behind all these things is that Brahman only, who makes everything happen. So such a child, when he looks out and looks into the nature and sees the beautiful flowers, he should lose himself in the contemplation of that supreme Brahman who manifests, though unmanifest, yet he is seen in everything in such beauty, Satyam, Shivam, Sundaram. Should be able to appreciate that idea. Right now, at the best, science says it's nature and the beauty of nature and the variety of nature, the intelligence in nature, they say. But beyond that, there is something. The nature has emerged from that Brahman only. And that idea of this person, that consciousness is everywhere, should drive their thinking. That is the idea. And why Sanskrit is because that is the best language which can explain this. The closest it can get. There are so many Sanskrit words. I see these literatures, Sanskrit literature which is translated into English. There is nowhere nearby. There is nothing close to that in English, some of the words. Shraddha has no word in English. What can you do call Shraddha? You can call faith? No, that is Vishwasa. Then you call it interest? That is Sansaruchi. Then what should I call Shraddha as? Surrender? That is Sharanagati. Where is the word for Shraddha, which is the most important, most potent word for a spiritual aspirant to have Shraddha? Shastrasya, Guru Vakyasya, Satya Buddhya, Avadharana. Even our scripture defines Shraddha in couple of terms. It's such a deep word. So Shraddha can be understood only by knowing Sanskrit. You cannot explain Shraddha by, teaching them English. You can beat around the bush, but you will never get it completely right. There's so many such beautiful words are there. You think of this. This yoga. Is there a word in English? Yoga only they use, but then all kinds of acrobatics, they think it is yoga, and there are plenty of yoga gurus everywhere in the world. All their teaching is this pranayama, pratyahara, they think yogi. Our yoga concept is somewhere. Karmasu Kaushalam, Chittavritti Nirodha, Samatvam. So our yoga is somewhere. The whole idea of Sanskrit being distorted and distributed in this distorted form everywhere is absolutely saddening. And therefore, we should be able to understand our language in our own language. And if we cannot teach them in any other language, Sanskrit is one language which will encompass the entire country. This north-south divide it can bridge. The southern people won't like Hindi to come to this side, whereas northern people would not appreciate much of the Dravidian languages. But one language nobody can deny. That is Sanskrit. Because that's there everywhere. It's been there most ancient, even before other languages were there. So that is one bhasha which can help us study all the scriptures and understand them in the right perspective without misunderstanding them, wrongly understanding them by interpreting them in different ways through different languages which don't have any closeness also. Sanskrit. It's the most logical language. The grammar is mathematics. Sanskrit grammar is so logical. That's why it's artificial intelligence. Of course, Sanskrit is the best language to suit artificial intelligence because it's so methodical. I even read a report, probably I'll share with the university, that how learning Sanskrit in terms of Shruti, by just listening and repeating, can create new neural networks, in our mind. So our mind or our brain is as powerful as we can make it. See, everybody's got a brain, but what happens? This brain is not utilized completely. They say even somebody like Einstein might not have utilized more than 5% of his brain is their estimate. So the power of brain has never been utilized. But Sanskrit helps because it creates new neural networks. It means so much more capacity to store memory, to analyze, to interpret, to understand. So this is something that Sanskrit is capable of, and there is some research going on that. And but we don't need research to prove that. If a Vyasa can sit and write so many of these things, what Vyasa had, what motivation he had, what motivation Adi Shankara had, just their hunger for knowledge. Look at the amount of work that they have done. So Sanskrit is definitely very helpful. Whatever little Sanskrit you know, it will help. And earlier you learn, the better it is. So that all will definitely happen, because it should not happen that even after all the facilities, all these things are available to us at this point in time, yet we miss the bus. Yet we allow things to go on as they are going on and there is nothing, no changes are made. Then we should not, the future will not forgive us. Saying you got everything to make a difference and you just were complacent, by dead habits, you did not do any changes. But let something happen in this field. For all languages are beautiful, especially all Indian languages, which are original languages, all have equivalents of Sanskrit. Or they will just take the Sanskrit word itself and put it there. Whereas all the foreign languages, the European, the Greek, or whatever, Indo-European, Indo-Greek, they have some words similar, and for some words there is no equivalent at all. That's all the more the reason why Sanskrit must be saved and propagated. And I am sure a day will come when many people will adopt Sanskrit as their primary language, as their spoken language, written language, official language. That day will also come, but with the passage of time. Otherwise also we should learn Sanskrit, even if you are not planning to learn too much of Vedas, Upanishad. It's a very beautiful language, very methodical, very logical. English, T-O, to, D-O, do, G-O, go. How will that poor child, 6th class fellow, remember, the G-O has to be go and T-O has to be to. If he says to, then he'll get it. How many exceptions? What is silent, what is not silent? It's a headache. Therefore, half of them write the way they write, they don't speak. What they speak, they don't write. None of the languages of the world can match Sanskrit. Sanskrit, just as it is written, that is how it sounds, that is how it is spoken, and that is what it is meant also. There is no other meanings in that. It is what it is. So you have to understand the value of this amazing language that has come our way, Deva Bhasha. All gods converse in Sanskrit, it seems. So nevertheless, that is the most important. But now we are not talking about any language. We are talking about beyond languages at this point in time. We don't want to talk. We want to be in the state of Maunam. Maunam Munir Lakshanam. It is the Lakshana, quality of a Muni. Because all the Muni, the word Muni has come out of Maunam only. Mauni, Muni. The one who always keeps quiet is Muni. Why he keeps quiet? Because he understands it's a waste of time to speak. Sitadhi Muni Uchyate. He is Muni, is Sitadhi. His mind is always steady, stable. There is no Vikara. If Vikara comes only, I have to express myself. Everything is good as it is. So why should I speak? There is no need to speak. If you speak to a fool, he won't understand. A Jnani does not need any speaking. He can understand without that. So they decided why to speak. Let us not speak. Ramana Maharshi's story I was reading is like that. People will come and argue with him. Which is better, destiny or free will? Which is true? So he might have tried explaining earlier, but later it took to Maunam for such people. He said these people are simply coming with idle curiosity. Sunday comes first or Monday comes first. It's all nonsense. Whichever day comes, take it as it comes and live the day better than the previous day. That's all matters. But these kind of things, God's will has decided I should be a criminal. I didn't take to the path of spirituality. Now why should I suffer? Because God decided I should be a criminal. Now God already decided you should suffer after you become a criminal. Both our gods will take it that way. Or believe in free will, saying that I deviated from God will, now I have to correct it and escape out of it. No, God has to will, I should correct myself and escape out of it. What if God does not will, you should correct yourself, you should find yourself in jail? So these logics and this tarka kutarka doesn't. So these Maunis are very clear about that. We don't waste time on explaining things to. That is what Buddha said. Don't argue with the fools. And the fellow said, no, you have to explain to them what you mean. He said, you are perfectly right. I don't want to argue with you. What's the point? So Maunam. So Maunam is the very, very powerful tool in all spiritual purposes. Manam, Mananam, Maunam, Munim. 4 things. Mana, your mind. Manana, contemplation. Mauna, silence. Munim. You become that. So this mind can be controlled through first contemplation, that is thinking of one thought continuously. And then slowly come to a no thought. Amani bhava. Manasoya amani bhava. What happens? Na dvaita uplabhyate. To such a person whose mind has become no mind, in Maunam it has merged. Such a person, no dvaita. Dvaita feeling does not exist for a person whose mind has disappeared. Where it has disappeared? Yada pancha avitashthante. All the 5 senses. And what is Jnanani manasa saha? Jnana means the buddhi part and the mind. All of them merge together. Buddhischa na vicheshtate. Buddhi also is not thinking anymore. Means you have crossed the mananam stage, where buddhi was still thinking, contemplating. Buddhischa na vicheshtate. It also does not think of anything else at that point in time. That is paramam gatim, it says. That is called tamahu paramam gatim. Kathopanishad says. When all your indriyas, 5 of them, have merged themselves with jnana indriya, karma indriya, both have merged with mind. Mind has merged with buddhi, and there is no more buddhi functioning at all, because your mananam stage has been crossed. Now maunam stage has come. And from maunam you become munim. You ought naturally slip into the state of a muni. Who is muni? Who is a muni? Sitadhi. Sitadhi means samadhi. We said dhyana which will lead to samadhi. So now many people are asking me questions. Swami, we are contemplating on Brahman and we are thinking of attributes of Brahman. So is that all right? I said, you are very amazing, because Brahman is not supposed to have any attribute at all. Brahman is Brahman. How is Brahman? Brahman is etadvaitad. That is that. It doesn't have attribute. Yes, Sachidananda, all these things are at the level of trying to make you understand what it is, because you never tasted it. You see, that is why our scriptures went by neti concept. This is not, this is not, this is not. The closest they try to explain is asti bhati priyam, satchit sukham, or satyam jnanam anantam. They try to explain, but till you know it, you don't know it. So when you will know it, when you have even crossed the stage of mananam into a deep maunam, that is when it reveals itself. Till then it won't reveal. So you started with pranayama, pratyahara, mana stage. From manas, what is went to mananam, you went to dharana, mananam. Now you are in dhyana, it is maunam. It means in dhyana you are not even trying to understand what the various attributes. That's why I told I don't want to give any saguna bhakti here at this point in time. The moment I bring saguna, then you start thinking of how big the nose is, how big the ears are, how the eyes are, lips are. That is not what we are looking at. Because you will not become that. You will enjoy that. Bhava, samadhi or whatever. You may come something like that, but it's not the ultimate. So what happens? You have to keep on practicing this idea that aham Brahman. When you keep on saying this to yourself, aham Brahman, without even thinking what does that Brahman mean. I just believe one thought called aham Brahman, whatever it means, because I don't know what it means. That is why I am contemplating on it, so that it reveals itself to me. Sputa, they call it. It reveals. It suddenly bursts and reveals itself. So I go on repeating to myself. Some people have written to me saying that, what should I do? Should I imagine something in my head? I told nothing. That is the whole idea. I don't want you to imagine anything. I don't want you to think anything at that moment. Keep just repeating to yourself, aham Brahma, aham Brahma, aham Brahma, aham Brahma. Keep on repeating. And see to that no other thoughts are coming and interfering. If they are coming and interfering, then remove those thoughts, again start aham Brahma, aham Brahma, aham Brahma. Otherwise what will happen? Some other thought will come, then you say, oh, yesterday Swami talked about Brahman. Brahman is like that, Brahman is like that. Then you have gone away somewhere. You have lost the original plot. So here at this point in time, it's only aham Brahman, and there is no analysis there in the head. All the analysis has happened in Mananam stage only. Maunam stage, there is no analysis. It's one and the thing. That's why Sri Krishna says very beautifully, He says, Maunam chaiva aham guhyam, he says. I am the secret. I am the Maunam of the secret, he says. He says many things. And we keep studying, I am amongst like Atma Vidya, I am Atma Vidya amongst Vidyas. Adhyatma Vidya and Vidyanam. Like that he explains what he is amongst various things. In that he clearly says, Maunam chaivaham guhyam, secret. That is a secret. And how the Maunam, the silence of that secret is me. Means if you want to know the secret, you have to be silent. That is the key. So learning to be Maunam, a Mauni, will lead you to Muni Tattva, that is understanding Samadhi, whatever comes after Dhyanam, it's only through Maunam. So now you have to sit down and go on thinking to the Mananam. You do other time Mananam when you are walking, keep thinking, oh, this is Brahman, that is fine. Just to keep your thought occupied with the idea of Brahman and not with anything else. If you see a cow also, in your heart of heart you say, see, that is Brahman. It is also Brahman. You see a flower, you think and say, oh, that is also Brahman manifested. Oh, tree is there, that is Brahman. Dog crosses by, that is Brahman. Everything around you, human beings who cross your path, everything is Brahman. Car is Brahman, road is Brahman. Everything is Brahman, you think like that. That should go on as a contemplation all the time. But when you sit down for your meditation, when you sit down in one place steadily, after having done your little pranayama to control your energies and stabilize them, after having got your mind focused, which is scattered everywhere, you brought it all together to one point. And probably first 3-4 minutes you even did the mananam. That Brahman that we are thinking about is that which is everywhere, which is the source of everything, which is permeates inside, outside. All that you think. After that you should slip into the stage of absolute maunam, means no talking inside also. No talking means no contemplating also. Just repeating. Japa. In that silence. Aham Brahma, 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 Aham Brahma. That should go on in your mind. No need of shouting. Go on like this. And you see suddenly at some point of time it will decide, okay, this is time. And it will take care of whatever it needs to do. So now because some people ask, what should I be doing during chanting Aham Brahma? I said, you should not be doing anything. That is the whole purpose. Could I imagine Swami as the Brahman? No. Can I imagine? No, don't imagine. No, imagine nothing. Just sit. Just keep repeating this. Now, who is repeating this? My mind is repeating. Don't even think who is repeating. Just repeat. Don't. The moment you think, is my mind repeating, you have invited trouble. Then mind will come and say, yes, yes, I am the one who is repeating. And you know what? I am planning to do this after the meditation. And then after that in the afternoon, oh, you invited big trouble. So you just keep repeating. Who is repeating? Brahman only is repeating. Truth is that. But I don't want that you have to realize for yourself. Because he says that how this pranasya prana, who is the pranasya prana? Mana, the first thing he asks is that, Keneshitam patati manaso. That first, who makes the manas think and go towards its destination? Preshita, which it wants to achieve. How does it, who makes that mind go towards that which it wants to achieve? Who he asks. It means who is repeating right now? Brahman only is repeating. Brahman only is pushing that repetition. The moment you think, no Swami, it is my mind only now, which is repeating this. The moment you think like this, you have invited the mind. It will immediately appear like genie from the, you rub a little and that's it, it's there. Tell me what next. In fact, that genie is good. It asks you what should, this genie will command you, let us do this next. Okay, finish your meditation. How long will it take? 5 minutes? Okay, I'll wait. 5 minutes later, can we go and have a dosa? No, it will ruin your meditation. So some people asked, is it not my mind only, Swami? You are saying you should repeat this. If I have to repeat, I have to involve my senses, involve my mind, isn't it? I told, don't even think. Because Kene Shitam, who is behind this mind? Manaso manoya. The mind of the mind is behind this mind. So anyway, you don't have to worry about this. When you are chanting, don't even think who is repeating. Is it my body repeating, my mind repeating, is my buddhi repeating? Don't even bother, don't even give that thought, just keep repeating. Satata japet. Keep on repeating, and what will happen? Don't even give an idea that any of your faculties are repeating this mantra at this point. Though that also you don't allow. Just keep repeating, keep repeating. And as you keep repeating, you will merge into that. Just keep chanting, Aham Brahma, 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 Aham Brahma. See, I am repeating, but I am not thinking of anything else. For that moment, I am not even thinking you are sitting in front of me. It will become like intoxicating feeling. You will lose yourself slowly into that feeling. You will melt into that. Without you realizing. The repetition may still be going on in your mind level. But suddenly you realize, see, I am closing my eyes, I am not able to open it if I repeat it 5 times also. That's why I was telling somebody, oh, this bhajan and all, I have to keep myself wide-eyed open, because after that I am not feeling like speaking. It is a punishment. Bhajans are very, very high quality. It's done with great fervor and devotion. It's very difficult. 5 times if I repeat Aham Brahma, I don't feel like repeating, talking again. But this is a very important question somebody asked. Swami, am I not using my mind to repeat that Aham Brahma? Is my mind not there? No, your mind of mind is there. And that you don't have to bother about. It is harmless. The lower mind is not there. Manaso manoya. Sau pranasya prana. That prana of prana is repeating this. That mana of mana is repeating this. Who is hearing this? Chotrasya Shotram is listening to this repetition. And who will see it? Chakshuscha Chakshu will finally see it. That is why Vaikari is over. Madhyama is also over, because you are not even repeating in your mind to yourself. I am not even bothered about Pashyanti, whether you are getting lights, colors, or what form, what name. Nothing is there. Only now you are working on para. Vaikari is over. Madhyama is over. Pashyanti is not our lookout. Even if you start studying a story of a lady who went to Ramana Maharshi, and she said that she had learned some meditation from a guru. Now she lost her husband, family, children at a young age, so she took to the path of serving gurus and getting some jnana. So some guru taught her some meditation. You focus on your tip of your nose, and then you will be able to experience a bright light in the center of your brow, and then ecstasy will come. So she learned that, and poor lady didn't know much. So she kept on repeating, and sometimes she'll go off into ecstasy for 1-2 hours. She was also in charge of serving Ramana his food. So that's how she knew Ramana, and Ramana knew her. So one day she herself on her own went and asked Ramana, is it okay that I am doing this? I am sitting and focusing on this nose, and then I get these visions and I feel very ecstatic. Very, very happy, I feel very peaceful. Is it all right? He said, no. This is not that. This is also a lower idea. Siddhis are lower idea. Samadhis are lower idea. Now you will be thinking there no motivation left in doing this. I thought some bliss I'll experience at the end of the day. Till now Swami was saying suddenly he's moving the target. It looks like this is always moving, he's never catching. But this is the truth. You may experience Samadhi, good, because that is when all your senses are come to a steadiness, harmony, Samadhi. Everything has become silent and equal. So that has come. That is good because you can escape this otherwise painful distractions of the world with Samadhi. Somebody is bugging you too much, you just close your eyes and Aham Brahma and you go on in Samadhi. And you can keep speaking what he wants to speak. It doesn't matter to you because you are not listening. So what happens? You save yourself the trouble of listening to nonsense, seeing unwanted, by withdrawing your senses within and establishing Satsvitihi, Satswarupastitihi. You get back into your original state. Then what happens? You don't have to bother about all these things around you. So that is one great escape from the otherwise worldly nonsense. So that way Samadhi will help you to experience that joy. But more importantly is that there is a state beyond that, that is what we are looking at. That state will come, but to get into that room you have to open this door, isn't it, to get through. So the door opening is what it is happening right now. So you open the door through dhyana, and when the door opens, the other side is that samadhi, that state. And by continuously practicing this, that state will become natural to you, like walking is natural to you. You don't have to put efforts. You don't even realize that you are walking. But you keep walking. And simultaneously you do all other activities. Like that, that state of consciousness will become natural state for you while you keep doing all other activities. It just will take one moment of focus and you will be back into that state. So it will be like a screen on which the movie is playing. The screen is not seen, movie is seen, people are seen, the pictures are seen. Like that your life will become a movie. Any point of time you feel, no, I want to, it's too much. You don't have to switch off the movie, just focus on the screen. Because you cannot switch off life's movie on your own. It will have to go on. But what you can do, you can switch your focus. From watching the pictures and worrying about who is dying and who is winning the battle, to focusing on the screen, saying that look at the screen, how beautiful it is that all the pictures run on it, yet nothing happens to the screen. So that is the idea with which life will become a natural samadhi. All the time that state will be equal-mindedness, and you will become very silent generally. Yesterday only I was discussing this, saying, oh, I can't imagine I lived like this before this month, 1 month back. I used to talk so much, I used to see this, I used to go there. Suddenly the person feels that how could I do all these mad things? It was just 1 month ago, it looked like somebody else was doing. Today I am somebody else they are feeling. Because they have changed. They have transformed into something else already. And there is what is the first thing? Parashanti. Already you are experiencing some bouts of that peace. At least mental peace. So that changes you should feel within yourself. The whole life should become calmer, more silent, more slow, and you should feel speaking is a burden. If you really need to open your mouth, it should be worth the words, whatever has to happen because of your instruction, should be worth it. Then only you feel like opening your mouth. Otherwise, Atmanyava Atmantushta. You are busy in your own self. Atma Krida, Atma Ratihi. You are within yourself. If ever you must speak, then you know that you are losing silence. You are breaking your maunam. It means you are breaking your ability to remain in a swasthiti. So you are pushing yourself into another lower state of existence. Till you have attained that sahaja samadhi. This is the struggle. So you should feel it's a burden to speak, to interact. But you will be very happy doing your things. Change you will see. Offices will become like that. People will come do their thing. There's no necessity to simply go and chit-chat definitely will disappear. Gossip will disappear. When we open our mouth and speak, loose talk happens. Because of loose talks, we speak things which are unnecessary, which are untruth, which are hurtful, which are scandalous. See, all these will not naturally get out of the ashram. Half of the problems will be solved. People will become more kind to each other, at least if not kind, they are not unkind anymore. They are within themselves. Everybody is Brahman, they are going about doing what they have got to do. We keep doing what I have got to do. At the end of the day, you go back to your own place, go back to your swasthiti, you are happy. Everything will become joyful, everything will become peaceful. It's such a beautiful state of existence that is. I have learned that so many people are listening and watching and they're really putting efforts around the world. And some of them keep sending me message that they've been benefiting from it. In these lockdown times when there is so much of mental depression. Today I read one newspaper article on anxiety in this current generation. It's one of the biggest killers. Depression, anxiety, psychological issues. Especially, when they don't get what they want, they cannot deal with it. They cannot deal with failures. They cannot deal with, things that are unfavorable, unpleasant to them. It's so difficult for this generation. Where it is going? Jantu naam narajarma durlabham we say. Where it is going? And today's a whole one-page article in today's, I think, Times, which says that the biggest problem that people are facing right now is depression and mental anxiety. And not just because of lockdown. Generally, people are becoming like that. As I said, 75% of Americans take some tablet or some medicine for depression. Look at that. Such a beautiful human life, and you have to take medicine to keep yourselves happy. What a state we have fallen to. No? Adhapatana. There should be some way out of this. The only out of this is spirituality. And in spirituality, the only school of thought which is ultimate, because fail-proof school of thought, is Vedanta. Bhakti is there, Jnana is there, everything is there. But as I said, you will go and get stuck at some level. Unless you develop that Parambhakti is Jnana only then. So that is different name. But ultimately, if you don't attain what you are, it's not possible. That's what Shankaracharya says. Na yogena, na sankhena, karmana, no na vidyaya, brahmatma aikya bodhena. Moksha siddhyate, na anyatha. Only when you think that Brahmatma Aikya, you are one with Brahman, moksha siddhyate. Only then your mukti or moksha will come, na anyatha. Not by yoga, sankhya, karma, none of this, no vidya. None of these will not help you, ultimately. Very beautifully, he says, Agyana sarpadashtasya. The one who has been bitten by the snake of ignorance. Brahma Vidya is the Aushadhi. Brahma Vidya Aushadhi vina. Without the Brahma Vidya is the Aushadhi. Kim Vedai Kashta Shastrai, Kim Mantrai, Kim Aushadaya. You have been bitten by the ignorance as the serpent. And the medicine for this ignorant serpent who has bitten you is only Brahma Vidya. Leaving that, what is the use of Shastra and what is the Veda, what is the use of mantras and what is the use of other things? What is the use, he says. It's so correct. Nothing else. Nothing else will work. Now, this is the only thing which will work at the end. So, yesterday I told, this Aushadhi, how do you get it? By repeating the name, you don't get it. Aushadhi Shabdataha. No, I Aushadhi, paracetamol, headache won't go. You have to take it. Nagachati vinapanam. Without taking it, it won't go. And what is taking it? Aparoksha anubhava, it says. Bina aparoksha anubhava, Brahma shabdai na muchyate. By repeating Aham Brahma and you have not finally experienced the aparoksha feeling, at least to some extent, for some moments, no use. And when this aparoksha comes, he again explains, you have to do akritva drishya. All the seen should disappear. All that you see and know as different from you should disappear. Akritva drushyam. All that seen is disappear. Gyatva. And you have to know what? Tattvamatmanaha. The self. Once you know that, all this will disappear. That is why I say Atmana, when your mana amani bhavati, na dvandvam labhyate, uplabhyate. No duality will come when your mind has gone from the maunam to the muni stage. You are coming from mananam to maunam. From maunam, it moves into muni, all drishya disappears. You don't even know you are sitting there. Your body exists also, you don't know at that moment. So drishya vilayam. All that has to go. Jnanam Atman Tattva, that's alone is capable. Otherwise, Brahma Shabdaihi, by repeating the word Brahma Shabda means Brahma, Brahma, Ham, Brahma, Ma, Brahma. na muktihi. Kuto mukti, he says. Where is the mukti? By repeating, ukti matram phalayar nrinam. By simply speaking about it, repeating it, no phala will come. Your mind should reach a stage where drishya vilayam, all the drishya which you see, all the external should disappear. So, when you are meditating, don't even think where this meditation is happening, who is meditating, and who is repeating. And if at all your mind comes and tries to play trick, immediately tell yourself that is also Brahman who is doing this, because manaso manoya, he is the mind of the mind. So when it repeats, Brahman only is repeating. He is only repeating in himself what I am. That's the Brahma, Arpadam, Brahma, Vibhamma, Brahmana, Hutam. Everything is him. So at the end of it, even your mind comes and troubles you during this Maunam Dhyanam and tries to play tricks, trying to say, I am repeating, let me meditate on the attributes of Brahman. Immediately tell your mind, shut up. No, I am repeating for you. No, you are not repeating. Brahman is repeating. Otherwise, mind will come, then it will start thinking, actually, Brahman means Swami is Brahman. Then it will go into a different meditation route. Yes, Swami is Brahman, Brahman is Swami, like everything is Brahman, this is Brahman, that is Brahman, everything is Brahman. For that sake, don't bring a form and name again. So, Nam Rupa Vimukta, I have been telling that you have to Asti Bhati Priyam. This is only the Brahmat Amsha. Nama Rupa is only Jagat Amshas, these are. So, the moment you bring any name and form into your meditation, you are done. Your purpose is defeated. You are doing bhakti. You are not doing Vedanta Vijnana. No, that is not happening. You have gone back to the bhakti stage. The only time it will be when you are completely absorbed in the thought of Brahman only is repeating, Brahman only is talking, Brahma only is everything. So even if your mind comes and tries to say, let us think of a form and name, you tell, sorry mind, that time is over. Now it's Brahman only. See, all the days we are chanting Brahma, Arpadam, Brahma. Has anybody thought even for a moment that how powerful is that mantra if at all we meditate on it? Where is the time to meditate on mantra? Meditating on the food. Where is the mantra to meditate on? Brahma, Arpadam is happening like a parrot. That's why Brahma Shabda nam muchyate. By simply repeating, it won't come. Brahma, Arpadam, Brahma, Brahma. What is happening there? Oh, this is today's curry. This is the same thing which appeared yesterday. I think day before also the similar. Some Nama Rupa, some change has happened, but Asti, Bhati, same thing it is. It looks cut, they have cut it bigger, smaller, grated it, or made slices differently, but ultimately it's the same Brahman only I am eating. So your meditation is there, your mantras are going on like a parrot. But the same should not happen to your meditations now. That is why I am warning you. Everything is maunam, but mind is active. And it keeps telling you, I am repeating for you. Tell him, no, you are not. Manaso manoya, the mind of the mind is repeating this for me, which is Brahman. You have no role to play here. You keep quiet, you be away. Become amani, no mana, no mind at that point in time. Because the moment mind comes, dvandva, duality comes. Confusion comes. The moment you get rid of it, everything stops. So in the coming year, we have to put some of these very important shlokas, subhashitas, as a regular routine. Children should chant. Just by repetition, this is very powerful. If you hear it once, you will remember it better. By reading, you don't get these mantras. Sanskrit is a very elusive language. By reading, you don't get it. By listening, you get it. That is the power of, so Sanskrit teaching should not happen from book and notebook teaching. It has to be read and repeat, or hear and repeat. That is the only way Sanskrit can be taught. It is so scientific, I have to dig out that report. This is coming from Cambridge University as far as I remember, who did this report, and they said that they have studied that some children were made to chant Sanskrit mantras and some children were not in the group, whatever the sample they had taken, and those who chanted, they showed some new neural networks inside their brains, neural pathways, which were not seen in the case of the children who were not chanting. Though everything else, all other variables and parameters were same, except that they were learning Sanskrit and these people were not. And that group, whatever study group, in that they found that these people showed some new neural pathways which are not present in the brains of the other children. And they simply concluded that the more neural pathways means the more information is being processed, the more memory is being used, the more analysis is happening. Neural pathways are like roads, on that road anybody can go. Suppose I create more roads, more people can go. I create wider roads, more traffic can pass. So these are neural pathways. The psychology will tell you this. But they studied that Sanskrit is doing that. And somebody else also studied that Sanskrit is the best language for artificial intelligence also, they said, because it's very logical. So computer has less to process and remember. It's less burdensome on the computer's processing capacity because this is so logical and methodical. It doesn't have to remember so many exceptions. Like English, it has to remember many exceptions where we write in a way and pronounce it another way. So the computer also is like a child's brain, it has to remember so many additional things now. How do you pronounce this? Some of the things are not pronounced. So you write CHEF, you say chef. But the people will say chef or kef because they have also written character or they have learned something like chair. So they won't know which is the right pronunciation for chef. But this is a chef. It's an accepted English word. It might have come from French or whatever, but ultimately has accepted English word. Now you have to remember. So look at the pressure on the child's mind. To remember one word, he has to remember it has to be pronounced this way, not another way. And suppose he pronounces it wrongly, what an embarrassment for that poor child. Though he tried his best. Sanskrit, no headache of this nature. As it's written, so it is spoken, so it is heard, and so it is read, and so it is meant, most importantly. Somewhere is saying gross body, we say gross body, subtle body, causal bodies. In America, gross means is a very bad word. Too gross it is, means too low, and so you cannot use the same, but it means something else. So we don't have the correct examples for Sanskrit in English. We can translate and try to read, but if you can understand Sanskrit as it is, and maybe translate it to your mother tongue, like Telugu, Tamil, Kannada, Malayalam, they're far closer to Sanskrit. Even Hindi to an extent. But it has Urdu influence. But English is like a real far cousin of Sanskrit. Real. Because Greek is little better because it was having some exchanges in those times. Indo-Greek. But beyond that, if you see, English is like really far. So that is why the unfortunate part, we have to learn in English, speak in English, because that is what the language is being used. But I wish a day will come and everybody can speak in Sanskrit. No? They meet each other, they speak in Sanskrit, they greet each other in Sanskrit. They talk, hopefully they don't talk too much though, but whatever they talk, they talk in Sanskrit. Simple sentences, Have you had your food? Or where are you going? Where are you coming from? Simple things. Are you fine? Is everything okay? Simple sentences you learn first. They are day-to-day, daily sentences which you use in the ashram. So note down, these are 20, 25, 30 general and 20, 25, 30 specific. Just remember those sentences. Make it a culture in the ashram to speak like that. Everybody will speak once you start. So many people don't have the fortune, though born in a country like India, though born in such a Vedic, beautiful, spiritual culture. It's our greatest misfortune that we have. And thanks to all the British system of education which came and stayed. And whatever little changes people tried to make, like Rabindranath Tagore, he tried to make some changes, or Mahatma Gandhi tried something, nothing worked out. And most of the other spiritual leaders didn't bother. They were only busy preaching and philosophizing things. They were not here to propagate, promote. And whatever little gurukulas were there, they died because in the passage of time because of no support, no students were coming, no parents were willing, no aid or any kind of help to them from the society. So when I went to Tirupati, Gurukulam I saw there, and I went to this, our MLA of Tirupati is there. We went down to his place also. And he also runs a small Gurukulam. And he was telling all small children, but they are like thoroughbred Brahmins there. They're pakka coming from a very traditional orthodox Brahmin families, and he has taken them, and what he has done, he has kept them and teaches them all this through the gurus who are there, And till 24 years they have to be there. They're only 6 years, 8 years now. And till 24 years they'll be there. The only new thing he said he's doing is he realized that in Tirupati on the hill, the Gurukulam which is there, in that place they're only teaching Sanskrit, Telugu and whatever. No English is being spoken, no computers, nothing. So these people cannot spread this knowledge. They cannot go out of the country, abroad, and teach this because they cannot speak English. Whereas this MLA used this idea that our children should also learn some English, some computers. And if nothing else, at least they should be able to get on a video call and conduct a online Homa somewhere. That's the trend in this contactless world. At least that much they should know our computers. And so he is trying to do that. And also very interestingly, he kept some 1 lakh rupees deposit or something he has kept for every child, which will grow in interest, and whenever he finishes his education, that is 10, 15, 20 years later, that whatever money is there, first it will be given, because he understood the biggest fear of the parents is that, okay, he will be there in Gurukula 20 years, he'll study with you. After that, where is the money? Suppose he doesn't get any job. He says some funds will be there for that person. Whatever it may be very small amount, but that will help him to start off his life. That's a noble thought. So I like that this MLA's ideas, because I am looking at merging these two, the Apara and Paravidya. I am not saying we are creating Vedic scholars over here. At the same time, I am also very sure that it's not just about scientists, technicians, doctors, engineers. It's not even about that. So it has to be a good balance of both, and with that idea, we are now moving forward. So hopefully you all will be able to appreciate it, and whatever is the cost, we are ready to pay. As long as the train goes in the right direction, does not change the lanes on the way. And that should not happen. 100 years, 1000 years from now also, these institutions should chug along the same path of para-apara balance.